Yeah, I just want to get a quick look here, and the lighting during the day. It's wow. Ooh. Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to include something about the Moot and writs of habeas corpus and legal media and the career student on campus, and it seemed to be the thing about soap operas, like live auditing, in the way of what the word Moot is on campus. It's defined as a process of it sounds more like the writ of habeas corpus producing the evidence in a way of programming. Moot is termed as students practicing law in a setting, not that it's been defined as hypothetical or case theory based upon generation of, if it's really only an issue like customs as tradition, or family law, not necessarily considered the thought of an in-law identity crisis, or the naivety of that real fact about if the word is opportunity, well, there it is, okay. Because ultimately in programming, opportunity seems to be the issue of family law involving an in-law of identity crisis, and it seems to be whether if the factor is only a relation, or the impression of what an in-law normally is before, during, and after. Some idea of whether it's contractual as a venture and merger in corporate law or a business law, or just some idea convince me anything right now about family law just probably ain't going to happen anyway. But some idea between corporate ventures and mergers as compared to business law that would present maybe some idea of the Better Business Bureau having some thought of what maybe an operator might mean in the way of participating, whether that's a known or not known fact. But the thing with this is that ultimately the word moot, M-O-O-T, was that 50 and 63. The thing with this is that that seems to be the difference between a mute, and moot. It seems to be the real reality about pronunciation anyway of hey, I'll buy a vowel, yeah. So it seemed to be the thing about the moat, what that is to the kingmanship in the way of the Parliament, the English Parliament, as compared to the English issue of North America. If the misappropriation and allocation of the Mississippi only identifies language as English as some idea of the alphanumerics of 74 or the landmark, representing some idea of the difference between a memorial or a monument, or some isometric value beyond a method of banking as considered as an endorsement that would be presentative of a flat plane surface. Normally what American free trade would only suggest me if it's ultimately some idea of bartering and trading, maybe based on a foreknowledge of performance monitoring and networking. It seems to be more so the issue of only intellectual duration of a foreknowledge that way of performance monitoring involving networking, and what the real deal is about an in-law and maybe the identity crisis, having an in-law identity crisis, or some idea of maybe a thorough disregard of participation in a way of only what corporate and business law only mean. If it's ultimately getting to the issue between corporate and business law only identifying family law as a third-person access easement of having fair use of family law, based upon the difference between a plain horizon of corporate law, or vice president networks involving immigration, customs enforcement, representing some idea somewhere in between business corporate law and Mercedes, seemingly to think about what's in between, the Pentagon and Octagon in color code. Seemingly the thing about even Lexus LFSA and Mercedes presenting, the Smart for Two smart car, and it's almost like the love connection between Chuck Woolery identifying the 2 and 2, and ultimately in my mind it's automatically the Scion IQ and the highest possible score of 200 on an IQ test, yet the pronunciation and the similarities of Zion and Grover Cleveland being 1,000 years apiece, identifying some factor of Zion being an alphanumeric of 64 and ACTP : // in American and Israel. Real quick about that, yeah. So it seems to be that ultimate, soap operas present the issue some kind of communication between a career student on campus practicing law and you know what the real deal about the writ of habeas corpus is, and a producer producing the evidence normally isn't really even ever discussed in programming, or the thought of available closed caption for the hearing impaired. We interrupt our regularly scheduled programming so that we might bring you this special message kind of thing about that only suggests maybe whether or not, if knowing or not knowing, if a vice president network is only using the acronym as a virtual personal network, or the in-law identity crisis issue of some idea like a vice president maybe excusing an office and administration of its own designated like geographical attachment, defining the meaning of what the categorization money only means, or some idea of a news anchor defining the meaning of what only some idea as a method of banking involving checking and endorsement would only maybe be some idea of like geographically attaching, and what would be the assumption of a bank of a U.S. dollar, not necessarily ultimately getting to cryptocurrency. While cryptocurrency is not Bitcoin, it seemed to be the issue like a storage area network more so, and business hours of an ATM more so than it is a method of banking as some idea of like a registered charity or a forfeiture based upon neglect based upon lack of experience, or ultimately even think about the supplemental security identifying the misappropriation allocation of the Mississippi in a way of having fair use of like what the equator means to Amazon.com, and like the Nile and the Euphrates, and what the equator used to the operator, and it seemingly the similarities of McDonald's Golden Arches that way of above the equator, or the center line of oscillation, and ultimately the schematic fish. But the Moot, M-O-O-T, is defined as like it doesn't really identify it as career students, but really ultimately for real, like career students are like a reality on major colleges and major universities practicing law. Even to think about language and linguistics. In alphanumerics, I haven't ever seen a compound of linguistics. Not every university identifies it as a major or even a minor involving linguistics. I haven't seen it like really period at all with alphanumerics combined with like anything involving like really any language in any kind of degree plan that way. But just seemingly like knowing that combining it seems to be the difference between like the English Parliament representing some idea like, well, do you speak English, or like do you know